If you've been a fan of this channel for a long time, my answer to this question might surprise you. Here it is. Should men always pay on the first date? And my answer is, well, don't use the word always, but in general, yes, and damn near always yes. I know, it's sacrilege against the creed of don't supplicate, but hear me out. If you invited the girl on the date, which will be the case the vast majority of the time, you may or may not end up paying, but you better be prepared to pay. Because if you invite the girl on the date and then ask her to pay, it's going to create a massively awkward moment. And you have to ask yourself, what is the purpose of the date? And also, how much is your time worth? The most important thing about who pays on the date is actually not who pays. The most important thing is that it not be awkward or contentious. However, if you invite the girl and then ask her to pay, she will very often be offended. Even if it's not for a big amount of money, but especially if it is. So what do I suggest? Don't invite girls to things you're not willing to pay for. And if you're not willing to pay at all, find free things to invite girls to. Now, I started dating as a broke college student. And I don't think you understand, like there's broke college students and then there's me in college. I was fucking broke, okay? I had no money to my name. I had what little scraps my parents sent my way and no college job. I was very fucking broke. And I went on dates. Now, at the time, I actually did go take girls on lunch dates and I just figured out how to scrounge up the money somehow. But I kept it very, very cheap and I had like a budget. I would not spend more than like $10 on a date, period. But if I had been even poorer, I would have found free dates. I would have been like, hey, let's go for a walk in the park on the date. Or, hey, I was in college, let's go for a swim at the free campus swimming pool. Whatever the fuck. I would have found something free to do on the date rather than invite a girl to something I cannot pay for. Because after a couple reps of dealing with the awkwardness of paying, you realize it really fucks up the date. It really does mess things up. And it is super, super awkward. Now, if I did take a girl on a date and she asked to pay, probably what I would do is I'd be like, no, you don't need to. And if she insisted, I'd be like, okay, fine. We'll split it or you can pay. That'd be fine. Most times I'd probably split it. But here's the thing. Your time, if you're a grown adult man, is probably more valuable than whatever you're spending on the date. And if it's not, you should consider a cheaper date. Because ironically, expensive dates may be counterproductive. Typically on a date, you have a choice between dinner or drinks. That's the most common two choices for dates. And of the two, dinner's more expensive, drinks are better, okay? Dinner is more try hard, dinner takes longer, dinner makes the girl feel like bloated and full afterwards as opposed to sexy and tipsy. During a dinner, you don't have control of the time, right? If you've ordered like a multi-course meal and you and the girl are feeling really frisky and fun when dinner hasn't come yet, you still have to wait around for dinner to come, wait around to eat it, wait around to get the check, and then you can take her home. Whereas if you're having drinks and half a drink in, things are going well, you can finish your drinks and go home right then and there. At any time, spur of the moment, you have control over the situation. You know, it's cheaper and it's better, so please err on the side of drinks, not dinner. I know that's not the question before us, but it actually does pertain because it has to do with expense, whatever. Anyway, the point is, you do not want awkwardness about the check. Think about this. You spent whatever time you spent meeting the girl, whether that's live or online. You spent whatever time texting and calling the girl, whether it's live or online. You spent whatever time showing up on the date and blocking out this portion of your evening, and then you have this question about who's gonna pay. And if we're talking about something like drinks at a really expensive place in an expensive city, maybe 50, 60 bucks. Maybe, okay? You've put in how many hours to getting this date? How much do you make per hour? Even if you made minimum wage, it would be worth paying to not lose all the time investment by messing up the date. And I'm going to assure you that if there is awkwardness about the bill, the mood of the date will crater. It will go down dramatically. Okay, now, there are potential exceptions. If the girl invites you to something and wants to pay, by all means, let her pay. If the girl is massively richer than you, possibly let her pay. For example, I dated girls that are millionaires, right? And even multimillionaires. If I was a struggling broke college student, and the girl was one of those multimillionaire girls, and she wanted to pay on the date, I would not be insisting. I'd be like, thank you, I appreciate it. It's very kind of you. You're very wonderful, and I like dating you because I finally have money. I would let the girl pay if she was way richer than me. And I would let the girl pay if it was her idea, and I would tend to let the girl pay if she invited me to things, or at least I would expect that it's a paying or splitting situation. But making a big deal and making it awkward just creates a bad vibe on the date. Now, just because you pay on the first date does not mean you always have to pay for everything throughout the entire relationship. At a certain point in the relationship, oftentimes post-sex, but it can be at a lot of different points, the woman decides that she is committed to you. She decides she likes you. She decides she wants this relationship. And at that point, you're in kind of, you could call it a negotiating position. You're in a position where you can dictate some of the terms of the relationship. You can say, this is what I want the relationship to be, and this is what I don't want the relationship to be. But keeping in mind on the first date, number one, the girl's not maybe fully bought in yet. And number two, oftentimes you invited her. It is weird to invite somebody to something and then ask them to pay. It's not weird to mutually agree to something and then split it, right? So let's say you've been dating a girl for a few months and she says, hey, I want to go to the opera. You want to go or don't want to go or whatever, but let's say you want to go. And it was her idea and the tickets are a little bit expensive and you both make similar incomes. It's not weird for you to both buy your own ticket. But you could be like, oh yeah, get a ticket, I'll get one for myself, etc. Or hey, yeah, the tickets are this much, you can just Venmo me, right? That's completely normal within a relationship. It's not so normal on the first date because you don't have that level of familiarity. You don't have that level of buy-in, right? So after the first date, once you're in a relationship, you can set whatever terms you want for the relationship. If you're going to have a relationship where the woman pays for the man more often than not, that's completely fine. I'll tell you something interesting about me growing up. In my family, the woman, my mom, was the breadwinner, and my dad was actually the one who stayed at home with the kids more often. He had jobs at various times and different things like that. He wasn't like never employed, but she was the primary breadwinner. That's what I grew up with, and it's completely fine. And that was their relationship. That was their negotiation. Her job was making money. His job was making some money, but also he picked the kids up, took them to sports, coached them on sports teams. He did those things, and that's completely fine. You can have whatever relationship with a girl you want down the line, but on the first date, there are certain societal expectations, and also, again, you invited her, right? And so it's a big risk that if you insist that the girl pay on the first date when she's uncomfortable with it, you're likely to tank all the effort you put in, and you're likely to set things up kind of with a bad vibe or on a bad precedent. Again, if the girl insists on paying, sure, let her. But that should not be your expectation, and you should not be inviting the girl to something you can't pay for. It's not a good idea to invite the girl to something to impress her, that once you get the check, you feel like you got punched in the stomach. I've done that, and it's a shitty experience. Don't do that either. Quick word on supplication, especially since this video is kind of an anti-common view on supplication. You should not be trying to impress the girl with how much money you're spending on a first date, and you should not be trying to buy her affection. That is not the intention of this video at all. The intention of this video is not that. The intention of this video is just pure pragmatism, which is, again, invite the girl to something you can afford, and then be willing to pay for it if necessary. It's just pure pragmatism. And to be honest, it actually annoys me that that's the case a little bit too. But I live in the real world, and I know that my time is valuable, and I know that my results will be better doing it this way. And I also know that once the girl's bought in, I can set the relationship how I want. So on a practical level, I'm a very practical, what works in the real world guy. So yes, I would love it if, the standard was you invite the girl and she splits with you on the first date. I would love that if that was the case, but it's not. So you have to live in the world as it exists. You have to do what's the high percentage thing, or you don't have to do it. You're free to fail. You're free to get lesser results. If you want to get the maximum results, though, you should work with the world as it is rather than wishing it to be something it's not. All right? So the fact of the matter is, as a man, as the person who invited the girl, you are probably paying on the first date. Act accordingly. So I hope you liked my answer, or if you were offended by my answer, please post your flaming comments below. I would love to hear all your comments about how I'm supplicating and needy. By all means, post those below as well. But also post your questions, because I do use those for the content of this channel. All right, see you on the next video.